Hello and welcome back to another Bible reading.
Hello.
We are in Mark chapter 7.
Things are heating up.
Things are heating up, and now we're going to start seeing some of these confrontations. Mark's had all these little scattered events and all these little places. We're kind of like, where's the overall Israel influence over this? And we're going to kind of see some of the Pharisees
Not a pretty sight, is it?
step in here. But we're going to see the comparison between how the Pharisees react to Jesus' teaching and then a non-Jew woman, as we had in Matthew again, who's even, in one sense, shunned by Jesus at first, display greater faith in all of Israel.
Jesus just keeps doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a message in there
There's
somewhere.
a message in there, and I think he's really teaching us as readers, but those who are there, that there are people who really want to get to him, and they need him, and they want him, and it's worthy. He's a worthy man to follow.
Don't let ourselves get in the way.
Yeah.
The Pharisees did.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
The Pharisees and some of the scribes gathered around him. They had come from Jerusalem. They had seen some of his disciples were eating their bread with impure hands. That is unwashed. It's a ceremonial thing, not a hygiene thing. Well, the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they carefully wash their hands, thus observing the traditions of the elders. And when they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they cleanse themselves. And there are many other things which they have received in order to observe, such as the washing of cups and pitchers and copper pots. The Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat their bread with impure hands?" And he said to them, "Rightly did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the precepts of men. Neglecting the commandment of God, you hold to the tradition of men." Let's pause there just a moment. He's got some more to say along those lines, but he's just getting right down with it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that we're coming off the backdrop of Jesus healing all these people, or feeding all these people. And now the Pharisees, once again, they're kind of like that woman sitting in the background, waiting for Jesus to mess up.
Got him.
And he sees that his disciples don't follow the traditions of the elders.
A minor era in something that wasn't even an era in the first place.
Yeah, and traditions aren't bad. Everybody has traditions.
They do.
Right? Paul even talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, that there's traditions that he handed down. And I don't think all of those traditions that he handed down, especially the church of Corinth, were meant to be followed by every church. And he kind of says some of that stuff.
Some things get localized and appropriate for culture and expedient, things like that. But they're never laws.
But they're never laws, and they always have to conform with the law of God first. And they can never be risen above.
No.
But there has to be a filter by which you see these traditions.
They've got to facilitate law. If they don't, we don't need them.
Yeah. And even then, a lot of times we try to help God.
Isn't that weird? I mean, just saying that.
Nobody actually ever thinks that, but
but they do.
You really think you're trying to help the individual.
That hedge around the Torah. Well, if God wanted you to stop here, why don't we get you to stop here? Won't that be better? No, it won't.
No, or God, if it was better, God
would have done it. He's actually smart about these things.
He would have made that.
All right.
And they honor me with their lips, but their hearts is far from me. And I think we live in a culture that we do a lot of talk
and not much action. Our culture has gone to the dogs, and the church blames the culture and politics. Maybe it's the church.
Yeah, because I think we've been influenced by them a little too much.
Yeah. So he says, neglecting the commandment of God, you hold to the tradition of men. In other words, traditions of men had replaced the commandments of God. He was also saying to them, you are experts at setting aside the commandment of God in order to keep your tradition. So they're really good at that. For Moses said, he's going to give them an example. Honor your father and your mother, and he who speaks evil of father or mother is to be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or his mother, whatever I would have given to you to help is Corban. This is sort of like Achan back in the day when he gets things that were devoted to God when he should have left them alone. That is to say, given to God. You no longer permit him to do anything for his mother or father. thus invalidating the word of God by your tradition, which you have handed down, and you do many things such as that. So, pause here just a moment. He's giving it an extra dose here.
Yeah, there's this justification of why my way is better than God's way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always a justification for, yeah, I read that in Scripture, but. And everything, once again, comes with the ideal that, hey, this is better. This is good for God. This is me, displaying my righteousness.
Even if I don't understand why it's good for God, if he says it is, it is.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't have better thinking.
And he's about to explain this a little bit.
We got to explain.
Yeah.
So here we go. Let's explain that. After he called the crowd to him again, so he's going to bring them off more to himself so he can talk to them away from those Pharisees. He begins saying to them, listen to me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside the man which can defile him if it goes into him. But the things which proceed out of the man are what defile the man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. It's a kind of a disputed verse in some of the manuscripts, but that's kind of what he would say at a time like this. When he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples, so we're going to get another level of this, questioned him about the parable. He said to them, are you so lacking in understanding also? So he's going to get plain here with them. Do you not understand? Sort of goes into a man from the outside cannot defile him, because it does not go into his heart, but into his stomach, and is eliminated. You get it now? Thus he declared all foods clean. Now, he's not doing away with Old Testament laws. He's just saying, in the absolute sense, there is no uncleanness to a food. He was saying that which proceeds out of the man and what defiles the man. For from within, out of the heart of men proceed evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murders, adultery, deeds of coveting, wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these things proceed from within and defile the man. Compared to the washing of hands issue of the Pharisees, these are pretty big potato items.
Yeah, and it's always the weightier matters, but even here, this is beyond weightier and lesser, because they're adding things in. And this is kind of, the book of Colossians deals with this. There are things that appear to be righteous. There are things that have the appearance of righteousness.
Sensitivities. Well, that would be good to do.
Yeah, that seems like something that would make one pure or holy. Mm-hmm. Washing hands, especially with the significance of washings in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at the priests. They had to wash in the basin before they could go in. And so it's not a stretch to think that, hey, there's these washings, why can't we add a couple more?
And yet, those were even symbolic, even though they're part of the law.
Though I don't think Jesus is getting rid of kosher law, do you think he's hinting in a sense of this new kingdom is coming, and it's going to be much bigger than food? Mm-hmm. It's as Paul would say, it's
so
more
especially so for their made-up laws.
More than food and clothing?
Yesterday, I did something I haven't done since I've been here.
Oh, what?
You were there.
Oh, your suit coat, your tie?
Yes.
Okay.
I wore a suit and tie. When I became a Christian, if I hadn't worn a suit and tie when I was in the pulpit, I'd probably been drugged down and stoned or something like that. Maybe not. But, okay.
I've been there.
You have.
I've been there.
You've been drugged in. Well, if you want to wear a suit, fine. Now, I don't believe you should be dirty and disheveled. If you can do better, I think that's disrespectful. But clothing, the only clothing we've got in the New Testament that gets any attention is wedding clothing. Synagogue clothing, there's no such thing. In fact, people who did the bigger phylacteries and the bigger tassels, they're condemned by Jesus.
Yeah,
that's not where it is.
If you put on things to be seen by men, you've already failed.
You know what some people tell me? I bet you do. When I say this, you're going to say, well, yeah. You look like a preacher.
Yeah, I never get told that anymore because I really don't.
Yeah. You know what? And bear with me for a moment. I don't want to look like a preacher.
No, I want to look like what everybody else looked like.
Like Jesus.
Kind of what Jesus was accused of. Is he not a carpenter?
He's just a regular guy. What's up with that? He doesn't have the big scripture box on his head. He didn't have the big old tassels down here. He didn't know how to look if he's going to be a religious man.
Yeah, and we're not saying that a person cannot wear something if it is truly for God. If you are doing it for God, doing it to the Lord.
That's your business between you and him. That's fine. We've got people here that wear suits, and I'm happy for them to wear them.
Yeah, it don't bother me a bit.
No.
Actually, the moment I stopped wearing the suit and tie is the moment I really became unconcerned with almost what anybody was wearing, unless you start getting to the point where
You're
you're
wearing
like,
a beard
okay,
shirt or something like that.
you know, or you're wearing stuff where things are being revealed.
Yeah, you're showing a little bit too much of yourself.
Yeah, but other than that, when I come to worship, when I come together with the saints, that's not what I'm focused on.
We ought to be focusing on what Jesus is just focused on, the heart.
Yeah,
Because sometimes people who look really nice, they're not really nice people.
yeah, it shows nothing.
No,
Oh, my turn now.
it is.
All right, so now we're going to go from this
Good.
Jewish setting to a Syrophoenician.
She's not a Jew.
She's not a Jew yet. We'll see. And from there he arose and went away to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Some Old Testament big names in there. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know, yet he could not be hidden. There's the thing.
Yes.
There's this hidden. Jesus is trying to keep things quiet. He's telling people to stop talking. There are times where he's just trying to sneak in and out of places. No, can't happen.
And why is this happening? It ultimately isn't because they really like his teaching, though they sort of do. He feeds them and he heals them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's more important to them than his teaching because they crucified him.
Yeah, well, that's going to be true. But I think, you know, the kingdom, this kind of goes back to something we said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What would the world be? There's a lot of people who think the world would be better without Christianity.
They do.
It would not.
They don't understand what Christianity is, for one thing, but it certainly would not. It would be hard to figure out the influence over 2,000 years that man from Galilee has had on the world, and it's been enormous, even among those who aren't Christians.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what your philosophies and what is good and what is right and what is moral come from the teachings of Jesus. And there are people who don't even believe that Jesus is the Son of God, but they believe what he said. I mean, if everybody lived by what Jesus said, the world would be a better place.
It was Gandhi, who's reported to have said, at least, probably said something like this: "Don't give me your Christianity, but give me your Jesus." Yeah. And that wasn't because I'm saying Christianity is wrong. It's not when it's done right, but because sometimes there's not a congruence between Jesus and the religion that he built.
Yep. So, but immediately a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit heard of and came down and fell at his feet. Now the one was a Gentile, a Syrophoenician by birth. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and throw the dogs." So he's basically, what your understanding is, he's come for Israel.
Mm-hmm.
His children, his people. He came to his own, yet his own did not accept him. And you get, in a sense, he's saying, you got to wait your turn.
You're not the right kind of people. Now, we'll figure out later why he's doing this and everything. He's certainly not a racist, but for most people hearing that, they're leaving.
Yeah, yeah. And here's what she says. But she answered, "Yes, Lord. No offense whatsoever." She understands this is a Jewish man.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with the Samaritan woman who's like, "You, a Jewish man, talking to me?"
Yeah.
And the fact that he's even responding to her and talking with her openly in public, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Once again, Jesus is very perceptive.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that she's not going to be pushed away by words.
No, he wouldn't be talking like this if he knew.
I think he's wanting his disciples to see her response.
This is what it looks like.
This is
And
what it
how
looks
many
like.
times have I or others walked away for far less than this?
Absolutely. And he said to her, "For this statement you may go your way. The demon has left your daughter." She went home, found the child lying in bed, and the demon had gone. He cares for people.
Yeah, this Syrophoenician woman puts us to shame.
Well, Jesus' mercy and compassion, I think, because I'm going to tell you, if I met the Syrophoenician woman by birth, this Gentile, this woman, in the way she probably was coming to Jesus hysterical,
Making a nuisance of herself.
There's a lot of churches that would say, "Get out of here."
The disciples, when putting all the accounts together, tell her to shut up.
Yeah. You know who you're talking to?
Yeah, it's Jesus, we're going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So now, then he returned from the region of Tyre and went through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee in the region of Decapolis. And they brought to him a man who was deaf and had a speech impediment, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. Taking him aside from the crowd privately, put his fingers into his ears, and after spitting, touched his tongue. Looked up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, That's
Epaphatha.
that is, be opened. And his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Jesus charged them to tell no one, but the more he charged them, the more zealously they proclaimed him. And this is what we've been leading up to, by the way. This is kind of coming to a climax.
Yes.
That no matter how many times Jesus said shh, it gets getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
They can't keep it.
And if you haven't noticed by now, everywhere he goes, he's got a crowd.
You do.
So, why did Jesus, though you think, stuck his fingers in his ears and on his mouth?
And he does other things like that. The eye thing.
Spitting in the mud.
Yeah. Here's my thing.
Yeah.
Those were things people would do.
Yeah.
And guess what?
It actually worked.
Was
It actually worked this time.
Yeah, that's it. They would do this, and their success rate is, let's just say, not so good. Jesus is saying, when you do these kinds of things, they really don't work, but when I do them, they do.
Well, it's very much like the plagues of Egypt.
Yes.
All of those plagues represented that God had control over a god of
Exactly.
Egypt.
Exactly. No, these guys aren't really able to deliver the goods, but guess what?
Yeah, all these other people who do these things are charlatans, and it would have been stark to them. They would have seen it like, oh man, but this is working.
Right. They had to do the sleight of hand stuff and all this foolishness to make it look sometimes like something was going on. But Jesus doesn't have to do that. He just does stuff.
And they were astonished beyond measure. This is increasing. This astonishment, Mark is adding more adjectives around. They're amazed.
Yes.
They're overly amazed. They're astonished beyond comprehension.
Right.
And he has done all things well. He
That's
even
a good
makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. This done all things well reminds me, when you go all the way back to Genesis, and God made this world, he said it was what? It was good.
Very good. When he got it all done and made human beings and everything.
Humans messed it all up.
Yes.
And what is Jesus coming in and doing?
He's coming undoing what we messed up.
He's making all things well again. And that's...
The world is sick. Humanity's sick. And Jesus comes as the great physician.
Yeah. And ultimately in Mark 7, if you want to be made well by Jesus, don't come with your righteous hands, your washed hands. Come with an innocent heart, blameless heart, poured out.
He's got what we need, poor in spirit.
Yeah.
And we're not going to argue with him. We're going his terms because we need what he has.
Like with the Syrophoenician woman, she understood she was unworthy for what Jesus was offering.
Yes.
Yet, Jesus was still giving.
Because we're all unworthy.
Yeah.
We don't need to, as I heard as a child, put on airs.
No. So there's Mark chapter 7. Next, we're going to finish up the Galilean ministry here in Mark chapter 8 tomorrow. But anyway, we love you.
Yes, we do.
God bless. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.